Welcome into the Inside Indiana show. I'm Editor-in-Chief Ken Bikoff, along with publisher Ed Magoni. And the Hoosiers fall to 1-8 last week after dropping a pretty bad game, Ed, to Northwestern. They lose 59-38. Defense put up almost no resistance whatsoever for most of the game. 660 yards, I think, of offense. Or I'm sorry, 600 plus at the very least.
616.
616, and for a defense that had given up 59 points 2 weeks earlier, this is a trend that is worse than we've seen in a long time. And that Northwestern game also was just a situation where the Hoosiers played as bad as I've seen them play in a while.
Yeah, on a defensive side of the ball, definitely. There's no question. They only forced one Northwestern punt. They allowed Northwestern to run out the clock essentially in the fourth quarter by possessing the ball for over 9 minutes on one drive. I mean, basically Northwestern, if they wanted to throw the ball, they were able to throw it. And if they wanted to run it, they were able to run it. And IU couldn't get them off the field on third down. They couldn't get them to force any turnovers. I mean, it was a real bludgeoning.
Yeah, and it was also disturbing, too, because this is a Northwestern team that hasn't exactly been tearing things up. I mean, I think they had lost 4 or 5 straight coming into the game, and Indiana has played Northwestern tough in recent years, and yet here they were at home, homecoming weekend, and it was a mess almost right from the start.
Yeah, I mean, after Trey Roberson took the offense down the field to score, you kind of thought, okay, maybe the defense come out and get a 3-and-out. No chance. Northwestern came right back down the field, scored, and then came right back on the field again, and right back on the field again, over and over again. They couldn't find anyone who could cover Drake Dunsmore, who ended up catching 4 touchdown passes, which was a Northwestern record. It's just they just had no answer for Northwestern's offense in the passing game or in the rushing game.
So for the defense, is this a matter of talent or coaching, or where do you think the biggest problem is?
Well, you have to say it's at least partially due to the talent. But the other thing is they have a lot of youth out there. I know that sounds like the coaches keep saying youth, but it's true. I mean, it's not a false. Jeff Thomas was out this week. They've lost 2 of their senior safeties. But the bottom line is they just need to improve their overall team speed, and and the kids need to get some experience in the system and understand and recognize if they're playing a zone or if they're playing man or what the situation is, because basically when these guys cross when the receivers run across through 2 zones, they just don't know who's supposed to pick them up, and then he ends up wide open. So that's a real problem.
Trey Roberson has played well, I think, in his short time. Stephen Houston has come together. That offensive line is starting to hold its own. Even though Northwestern's defense hasn't been great, they're still holding their own. They did the same thing against Iowa the week before. And the offensive side of the ball seems to be coming around. But on defense, for all those young guys, I mean, the coaching staff talks about communication being an issue. I would hope that that's the only case, because otherwise you have guys out there who have played football. They've been recruited to a Big Ten program, and yet they're out there and blowing coverages, making mistakes that really they shouldn't be making at this point in the season. Now, in all fairness, again, these are true freshmen. A lot of them true freshmen or redshirt freshmen without a lot of playing time. But the Hoosiers also don't have a lot of experience that they could lean on right now.
Right, I think that's a big part of the problem. I mean, the whole secondary is basically freshmen or sophomores with Greg Heben, and other than that, I mean, the linebacking core has been banged up. The defensive line has been consistently healthy, but they've kind of underproduced based on the expectations of that unit, which is kind of disappointing, because if you're strung up in the front 4, then maybe it takes a little bit of pressure off your secondary and your second line of linebackers, but they just don't have an answer for anyone's offense right now. It doesn't matter who they're going against.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As good as the offense looked last week, until Indiana plays defense, it's not going to make a lick of difference when it comes to beating anybody. Now, the Hoosiers did take a hit offensively this past week when senior wide receiver DeMarlo Belcher was dismissed from the team for a violation of team rules. Belcher finishes his career 2 receptions short of Indiana's career receptions record. But more importantly, Ed, he's only played 6 games this year, still is Indiana's leading receiver this year, and yet it doesn't feel like Belcher's going to be missed.
No, I think they've been spreading the ball around pretty effectively, especially since Trey Roberson took over. I mean, he's not locking on to any one guy. I think a couple of games they've had like 9 guys catch passes, which is very good to see a freshman quarterback spreading the ball around so much, not zeroing in on one guy. He's going to the guy who's open, and that's what you want him to do. But Belcher has missed so much playing time this season that they've found ways to cope without him. I think the bigger loss is actually Deweese Wilson going down with his ACL, the knee injury, and losing him for the season. I mean, he was actually more as productive, maybe not in catch-wise, number of catches, but certainly from an offensive standpoint, he was the deep threat that they relied on for the most part. He could go up and grab the ball. He made a great catch in the end zone against Northwestern in the tight coverage. And, I'm actually more disappointed not to be able to see Deweese play the rest of the season than DeMarlo.
Well, especially since he blew out his knee on that touchdown catch, too. That really hurts. But, I think it's interesting, too, with the way the Belcher situation has been handled. Since taking over the program, plenty of players have left the program under Kevin Wilson. They haven't wanted to really, I guess, work as hard or haven't wanted to play for him, have had medical issues, have had other issues that they've dealt with. But Belcher in particular was a player that the Hoosier coaching staff really viewed as somebody who could be a leader. But with the dismissal, Kevin Wilson made it clear that there is nobody who's above the rules.
Moving forward, we had a suspension the other day with DeMarlo Belcher, but that has in fact turned out that's going to be a dismissal for the team. You guys saw that yesterday. I'm not going to go into great details other than no issue other than our seniors and I back in preseason went through the rules we wanted. The seniors actually amended and gave me some ideas of things they wanted, things we wanted to do, and all the players are aware of that, signed off on that. We go through that during the year, and unfortunately, just with some things that happened, it got to a point, and even our first meeting, very first meeting, I've said this to you guys a couple times, the best players and the seniors are held to the highest standards, whether it be on the field, off the field, performance, practice habits, just doing things right. So there's not, we don't have sacred cows, no individuals above anything, and so it's unfortunate that this has happened to what I think is a good kid and potentially a good player, but at the same time, just by following our guidelines, just didn't do things that needed to do in some situations, and it's led to dismissal, and that's kind of it with that.
Now, of course, the Hoosiers losing that another senior leader, but mentally, where is this team, Ed, right now after a month of just getting bludgeoned by different Big Ten opponents?
Well, I think the offense has to be a little bit optimistic. I mean, since Trey Roberson came in and Stephen Houston's been being very productive, the offensive line's blocking better in pass game and the run game. I think there's a lot to be positive about the offense, but the defense just is abysmal right now. I mean, Mike Eckler looked like he was ready to, jump off the top of Memorial Stadium when we saw him in the press conferences this week. So, it's you kind of feel bad for that guy and all the guys, but at the same time, you have to figure out a way to slow down these offenses, and they just aren't able to do it right now. So mentally, they could really, really use a win, but whether or not they're going to be able to get one with the defense playing the way it's playing, I just don't know.
Well, it's going to be especially tough against this week's opponent, a team that Indiana hasn't had a lot of success with in its history. That's a problem, and when we come back, we'll take a look at IU's next opponent, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? Doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please.
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana Show. Ken Bikoff along with Ed Magoni. And Ed, the Hoosiers' opponent this week, Ohio State. not one of the friendliest ones that Indiana has played in its history. Indiana's beaten Ohio State 12 times since 1901. 12. And in the past 60 years, there are 3 wins and a tie. The rest are losses, and generally some pretty decent-sized losses. This Ohio State team isn't as powerful as some have been in the past, but still, this one's going to be a challenge on the road.
Well, it's the defense over there that makes it difficult, and the crowd. You get 100,000 people going crazy. Now, Trey Roberson handled himself pretty well at Wisconsin, I thought. Given the crowd going crazy and everything. But their defense is outstanding, and Dan Herron can really run the football, and that's been IU's bane this season on defense, is being able to stop the run. So it's going to be very, very difficult for them to go into Columbus and get a victory.
Well, and offensive coordinator Rod Smith said that Trey Roberson is going to be playing 11 guys, not 111,000 people. And while there's some truth in that, the bottom line is this is an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old now. His birthday was on the day of his first collegiate start, but still 19 years old, has only started a couple of games, and now he has to play in that atmosphere that he's been watching his entire life. And I think that that's going to play a little bit into this, too, is just the Hoosiers' belief that they can beat this team.
Yeah, and right now the way things are going, you have to really question whether or not they honestly believe that they can beat Ohio State at Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's offense is nothing special. They struggle to throw the ball. They beat Illinois by completing 1 pass, which is just incredible.
They went 1 for 4.
Yeah. And they only threw 4, which is also incredible. But IU has to stop the running game, and unless they stop the running game, they're just going to get mauled.
Yeah, because if you look at the offensive numbers, Ohio State scores maybe a point and a half more than Indiana does, but on the flip side of that defense gives up a heck of a lot fewer, and Indiana is giving up almost 45 points a game during Big Ten play. So that's an issue that certainly is a problem, obviously. But I also think that maybe this game, coming off the heels of the other, I'm honestly, and not to give you a little preview of our prediction segment, but Indiana's going to have a tough time winning this thing. But maybe you can gain some momentum, some confidence, some just flat-out experience by playing in that kind of atmosphere.
Well, I think you can. And the other thing is that the Ohio State's offense is very one-dimensional. They run the ball well. They don't like to throw it. So maybe IU's defense can concentrate on stopping the run for once, not so worry so much about the receivers. Maybe you can go man-to-man on the corners. I don't know. That's probably a bad idea if they have any kind of accuracy with their throws, but you have to stop Herron. If you can't stop Herron, the game's over. So, obviously that's the first thing you need to do is take care of the run game. And if you can do that, maybe you can slow Ohio State down a little bit. Their offense hasn't been that prolific this season. So, and then if Indiana can move the ball a little bit and keep that momentum rolling on offense, who knows?
Well, obviously picking up experience for anybody on that team is going to be critical, and the Hoosier basketball team is hoping to pick up some experience this Saturday shortly after the Ohio State game in Bloomington by taking on Indianapolis, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the Hoosiers' exhibition opponent coming up on Saturday.
It's a new year. There's a new buzz. And there's a new Inside Indiana magazine. For more than 20 years, Inside Indiana has been your best source for the kind of in-depth coverage of Hoosier athletics you crave, and now the best just got better. By calling 800-282-GO-IU, you can experience 12 packed issues dedicated to Indiana athletics in full-color glossy brilliance for only $49.95. But that's not all. You'll also receive access to our new Inside Indiana Express edition online, featuring game previews, news, photos, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? To stay up to date on the Kevin Wilson era and all the excitement surrounding Tom Crean's Hoosiers, plus all the news you want on the rest of Hoosier athletics, call 800-282-GO-IU today. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Welcome back to the Inside Indiana show. Ed, the Hoosiers tip off their exhibition season and close out their exhibition season by taking on Indianapolis at Assembly Hall this Saturday. Now, the outcome of this game isn't really all that important. I think the Hoosiers are past the point where they lose these kind of games to a team like Indianapolis, but What are you going to be looking for from the Hoosiers, and what do you expect to see?
Well, I'm really going to be looking at the defense. I think that's going to be very key, to what we're going to be able to see throughout the rest of the season. They have to be able to just completely shut down Indianapolis. I mean, they're playing against an inferior opponent, which I think Indianapolis is well aware of. I mean, they're not even a Division I program. Yeah. Indiana needs to come out and just stifle their offense and then control the backboards rebounding-wise. And if they can do that, then I'll be pretty happy with the performance.
You look at some of the early games, I think last year, Ferris State was one of them that gave Indiana everything that it could handle. And it kind of set the tone for the rest of the year and showed where some of those weaknesses are. And like you, I'm looking at on the defensive side of the ball. There's been a lot of talk about guys improving on defense, putting more focus on it, looking to be more athletic. Certainly Cody Zeller is going to be in the middle. That'll help a little bit. But he's not exactly a shot blocker, somebody who's going to be able to keep guys from getting to the basket.
Right. I mean, Cody, just his length and his size will help in the post defense-wise, but he's a smart kid. He understands positional defense. He's a very fundamentally sound player. He's not going to commit a lot of fouls, although he did foul out of the scrimmage again after the Northwestern game last weekend. That's not going to happen a lot during the season, though. And on the perimeter, I mean, Remy Abel should be able to help them a little bit. Hopefully Verdell Jones has improved his defense. Jordan Halls. I mean, if those guys can defend on the perimeter and then you have a little bit bigger presence inside, I think that's really going to make a difference. Now,
the Hoosiers, this is their only public exhibition, but they did work a little bit against Indiana State at Conseco Fieldhouse earlier last week. And it is a game in which there was a lot of situational things. Public wasn't involved. Media wasn't involved. There were no kind of stats or anything. But even working in that setting against a Division I team, how can that help the Hoosiers improve?
Well, I think, at least for the non-conference season, a lot of the teams are going to be Indiana State's caliber or even inferior to Indiana State, because Indiana State's program is actually on the rebound right now. And, I think that's great experience to go against, instead of just butting your heads against someone else that you've been seeing in practice for over and over and over again. Different players have different styles, different abilities, different strengths, different weaknesses. You get used to playing against Tom Pritchard, you get used to playing against Verdell Jones, you get used to playing against Jordan Halls or whoever you may be going against in practice. You kind of know where they're heading with the ball. You learn their tendencies because you've seen them so many times. Just to throw a different Division I caliber athlete into the mix against you is always good to test yourself with, and I think that's probably a good move by Indiana to scrimmage against Indiana State last week, just because I think it will allow them to stop beating on each other for a little bit and get some more experience outside their own practice courts.
Well, and it also has to do with just the level of talent too, because that's a Division I team. It's nice to go ahead and build some confidence by beating up on some of the lower levels, but I think that they might be able to develop a little bit more just by playing against guys, fighting people their own size, and I think that could certainly help them. Now, Indiana's football team again is going to be going over to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes, and when we come back, Ed and I will give you predictions for what might happen in Columbus.
What's up, Worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? You doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!
Welcome back into the Inside Indiana show. Ed, we only have a couple of minutes, but your predictions on what might happen at the Horseshoe.
Well, I think Indiana's offense is going to be able to move the ball a little bit. and I think they're going to be able to put some points on the board. Now, whether or not they actually punch in from the red zone, that's been an issue. Like at Wisconsin, they were able to get some deep penetration into Wisconsin territory, but they weren't able to cross the goal line. And they got behind so much that they had to keep going for it on fourth down. They didn't kick field goals. So, even if they're able to move the ball a little bit, which they were against Wisconsin, like I said, they have to be able to stop Ohio State's ground game, or Ohio State's just going to possess the ball so much of the game. They're going to wear Indiana's defense out. And until Indiana shows me that they can stop someone's ground attack, I don't believe that they can. And I think that's basically it. I mean, you have to force Ohio State to throw to have a chance. And I don't know if Indiana's ever going to be able to force them to throw, so I'm going to go with the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to roll in this one. I mean, with the way the defense has been playing, they haven't shown me in a single game this year against a Big Ten opponent that they can hang with the other Big Ten teams. I mean, even if people look at the Penn State game, they only gave up 16 points, but it was 460 yards of offense, 150-yard receiver, 130-yard rusher. They haven't been able to stick with some of these other teams, and for whatever the reasons might be, the issues are, the bottom line is, on the scoreboard, Indiana has really, really struggled, and I think that in this one, being on the road, playing in that atmosphere, playing a team like Ohio State, Indiana's in a lot of trouble, and the Buckeyes walk away with the win. Well, we're out of time for right now, so for Ed Magoni, I'm Ken Bikoff. Thanks for watching, and pace yourself.